Welcome back to another episode of Stories with Dr. Brown, where we take a brief dive into medical history through our wonderful pictorial atlas here. This time, diabetes. During the summer of 1921, Charles Best, a biologist, and Frederick Banting experimented in laboratories that were loaned to them by a professor in the University of Toronto. These inexperienced clinicians found what other trained research scientists before them had missed: an extract of the pancreas that controlled the high blood sugar of diabetes mellitus. Proved in laboratory animals, their extract was first tried on a diabetic human in 1922. Banting and Best's discovery of insulin gave the hope of life to millions of diabetics who otherwise would have been doomed. The night of July 30th, 1921 was hot, humid, and uncomfortable, a summer condition well known to natives of Toronto. The air was stifling in the laboratory under the eaves of the medical building on the campus of the University of Toronto. As midnight approached, two young workers fought drowsiness and discomfort, impatience too, as they checked the slow creep of the clock's hand. At 12:15 a.m., they aroused their patient, a diabetic dog. They took blood and urine samples and injected another 5 mL of precious pancreatic extract from a vial floating in a bowl of ice. Patiently, they made routine tests. Then came the thrill for which they had dreamed for so many weeks. There was no sugar in the dog's urine. Its blood had been halved. No longer were Charles Best and Frederick Banting sleepy. They looked at one another incredulously for a moment. Then, as comprehension of their finding grew, grins turned to shouts of triumph. The staid laboratory walls looked down upon a strange scene: two research men dancing about for joy. Banting and Best had reached their first goal. They had stopped the most inexorable death march of diabetes. Few great medical advances have developed from less auspicious beginnings than the discovery of insulin. The men themselves had little research training or experience. The department head, who had made laboratory space available to them for a few summer weeks, was positive that they were wasting time. Their financial resources were barely sufficient for subsistence. Their only assets were courage, determination, and an idea. On the morning of May 17, 1921, the two young men began their first task, a study of the literature concerning the pancreas. They found that diabetes was known to ancient Egyptians, Hindus, Chinese, and Greeks, and that classification of diabetes as an endocrine disturbance was supported by the work of Minkowski and von Mering. The second task facing the team was putting together a laboratory. A small room under the eaves of a medical building. It had not been used for some time, so the walls and floors had to be thoroughly scrubbed. There were no assistants. Best and Banting had to do the job themselves. Early in 1922, Eli Lilly and Company of Indianapolis, Indiana, expressed interest in the production of insulin. Lilly scientists worked closely with Best and the National Institute of Medical Research in London, England. Within a year, insulin was being manufactured or distributed worldwide. Problems of control of the new life-saving hormone also arose. Banting and Best refused to profit directly from their discovery. They finally acceded to requests and applied for patents on the discovery of insulin, with the understanding that the University of Toronto would accept the patents and arrange for their proper administration. For this purpose, the Insulin Committee of the Governors of the University of Toronto was established in 1923. Though answers to many problems still exist, millions of diabetics today owe thanks for their lives to Dr. Banting and Best. In fact, I have to thank them myself personally for my father, who actually had diabetes, and as complications, if he had not received insulin, he certainly would have died at a much younger age. So thank you, Dr. Banting and Mr. Best. So that ends this episode of Stories with Dr. Brown. Come back next time for our next deep dive into the history of medicine. And if you happen to find any of this interesting, or more importantly, if you want to collaborate, check out the link below so that you can send us your comments, any stories you may have, anything. We're happy to entertain it. And this is really about us going on a journey together.